Life has been pretty good so far. I have a beautiful wife of 5 years, two wonderful children 4 and 3 years old, both boys. I met my wife through mutual friends about 6 years ago. They say opposites attract, and in our case, that's what happened. In high school, she was the American girl, and I, on the other hand, was the bad boy, somewhat of an errand boy. She went to college, and I got a job in a factory. She was a dressy girl, and I was happy in jeans and a t-shirt. I think you get the point. We were opposites. But we also had something in common, which we'll talk about later. We met at a New Year's Eve party. She was with her beau, some rich guy who probably got his women through money. She didn't look like a woman who could be bought. Most of the people at this party were probably above average financially. Everyone except me, of course. I was just a good old factory worker, but a happy one. I worked 8-hour days, had good benefits, and had almost no stress. You're probably wondering how I got invited to this party in the first place. I was driving home after work one day and saw a broken down car on the highway. This is the kind of place where you don't want to have an accident during rush hour. Nice, expensive car. As I pulled up next to it, I recognized one of our office managers in the driver's seat. His wife looked distraught beside him. I slowed down in front of their car. "Mr. Bailey, I'm John Davis from the rework department. Is there anything I can help you with?" "I recognize you, John. Thanks for stopping. The stupid thing just stalled. I was lucky I was able to pull off to the side in time. I'm sorry. I should have introduced you. This is my wife, Emma." "How do you do, Mrs. Bailey? It's nice to meet you. I wish it had been under better circumstances. Mr. Bailey, if you'd like to open the hood, I'll take a quick look. I'm pretty good at fixing cars." "I called AAA, but they said they wouldn't be here for another 2 hours. I'd be happy to do anything you can do." He opened the hood and I looked around a bit. "Mr. Bailey, have you changed the battery recently?" I asked. "John, you can call me Dan. Actually, we replaced the battery about 2 days ago. Your mechanic left a wrench on the battery, and it must have jiggled the battery connectors and given a pulse that stopped your car. Let me take it off and see if it will start. I need to get a pair of gloves. This key is on fire." I went to my truck, got my gloves, and removed the burnt black key from the battery. I pulled out my tools that I carry with me in my truck and cleaned the connectors as best I could. "Okay, Dan, give it a try." The car started immediately. I closed the hood, wrapped the burned key in a rag, and handed it to Dan. "You might want to take this to the store and have them check your electrical box to make sure there's no other damage. They should also replace your connectors." I cleaned them as much as I could. So far, everything should be fine. "What do I owe you?" Dan asked. "You don't owe me anything, Dan. I may need some help someday. It was nice to meet you, Emma. Maybe we'll meet again someday." "It was nice meeting you too, John," she said. They left and I got back in my truck and drove home. There's something nice about helping people in trouble. A couple of days later, while I was working, Mr. Bailey, Dan, came up to me and thanked me again. He said he had taken his car to the dealership, and they had to replace a significant portion of the wiring. He was told he was lucky the car didn't catch fire. "I'm glad I was able to help Dan," he said. "Emma wanted me to invite you to our New Year's Eve party if you don't do anything. It's kind of a thank you for helping out. If you want, you can bring a date. If not, there will be a few eligible ladies there." He held out the invitation to me. "Thanks, Dan, but I'll probably come alone now. Thanks to Emma for the invitation. I understand this is a suit and tie event." "Dress however you want, John. It's a party after all. The idea is to have fun." I put on slacks, a blue button-down shirt, and a sports jacket. That was about the way I dressed. I was greeted by Dan and Emma, who in turn introduced me to a few other people, including Cara and her companion Rob. Cara is a beautiful woman and was all dressed up. She smiled at me, saying, "Hi, John. Nice to meet you." Ray, on the other hand, turned out to be just as I thought he would be, an arrogant man who came from money. Cara and Ray worked in the same office. Emma was a silent partner in the firm, but worked there too, not knowing she was a middle manager. We'll talk more about Emma later. Ray was busy kissing the asses of the higher-ups, so I approached Cara and asked her to dance. We hit it off right away. We danced, and she told me a little about her life. She said that Ray and she worked in the same office. She didn't like him very much, but she agreed to be his date to this party. She knew all the people from her office who were there. She didn't know many of Dan's friends. I told her about myself, which I thought would be embarrassing because I'm not the kind of person who has money, and I don't have any either. But it didn't embarrass her. I think she was pretty independent. We danced probably 4 dances in a row before she remembered she was with Ray. She left to find him. I danced with a few other girls, but it wasn't quite the same. When they found out I wasn't from money, most left after the first dance. I figured they were after husbands. Love didn't mean a damn thing to these women. Money was the key to their success in life. At midnight, everyone shouted, "Happy New Year," and kissed each other. I was looking for Cara when I saw her standing there. I asked her for a New Year's kiss, and she kissed me. I asked her about the date, and she said that she thought he had gone out with one of the secretaries. I asked if she was ready to leave and would take her home. She stared at me at first, but then we said goodbye to Emma and Dan and left the party. Cara, I'm not ready to take you home. Could you go to the other party I was invited to? John, I don't know why I left with you. Ray is going to be pissed on Monday because I left him. Tell him you saw him making out with his secretary and decided to leave. I'm sure that's probably what he was doing. Please come with me. If for no other reason, do it for me. I want to show you off. You're the best-looking one on my date. But I'm not your date. You will be if you come to the party with me. Come on, Cara. Live a little. She smiled at me, and I drove to one of the neighborhood parties where I knew my friends would be. Everyone I knew said hello to us. Everyone remarked on what a beautiful woman Cara was. They asked me tons of questions about her, but I knew nothing about her. We had a lot of fun at the party. She was accepted by almost everyone, although a few women were jealous of her. We partied for a couple more hours before we left. I drove her home. She still lived with her parents, but they were away for the weekend. Do you want to come over, John? She asked. Only if we can get busy, I replied. We just met today, John. What are you going to think of me next? What I think of you now will be much better later. I might fall in love with you, if I haven't already. I could see her trying to figure out if that was right or wrong, if she should or shouldn't. I wasn't going to wait for an answer. I took her hand and walked her to the door. She gave me the key, and we walked into the foyer. She took off her coat and we headed to her bedroom. Not a word was said. We started dating and eventually got married. Her parents weren't thrilled about us getting married, but Cara was firm and told them we would elope if we didn't have a wedding. This was not customary in her parents' society. They threw us a very large wedding. I even felt out of place at it. The only people I knew were Mom and Dad, Dan and Emma, and of course Ray, since she invited her whole office. I invited a few buddies from work, but they didn't come to the wedding. They gave us cards and gifts, but said they would have felt out of place. As a wedding gift, her parents gave us $50,000 for a down payment on a house. We bought a fairly modest home, but it was still unaffordable. I worked overtime to help with the payments. Cara never complained about our money situation. I don't know if her parents gave her a little extra now and then or not. Cara knew that I wanted to be the head of the family and wanted her parents to help me as little as possible. Shortly after we were married, she got pregnant. We didn't have to get married. We just made love day and night for a few weeks after the wedding. Our son Jimmy was born. Cara took a leave of absence from work to be with the baby. About 2 months later, she started working part-time again. We could use the money. A little over a year later, our second son Jerry was born. We kept our names with a D: Jimmy, Jerry, and me, John. I hoped it would be a few more years before we had children. Cara decided to take birth control. She took another vacation that was supposed to last 2 months and then go back to work part-time. But instead, we got some bad news. My plant was closing, and they were going to merge our plant with another plant 2 states away. I'll tell you, I was shocked. It was all I knew. I'd been working there since I was in high school, and now I was going to lose my job. I came home and talked to Cara about the options they offered us. We could move to Illinois, we lived in Ohio, or we could get a severance package that depended on the length of employment. All of this was to happen in 60 days. Cara said she didn't want to leave the state. Both of our families were here, and she felt the children should see their grandparents. There weren't many job openings in our town. Cara came up with the idea for me to be a stay-at-home dad. Her job, if she worked full-time, paid $80,000 a year. I never knew about it. We never discussed it at all. She didn't take money from her parents. She earned it on her own. I asked her why she never told me about it, and she said that many men feel inferior when their wives earn more than they do. She said that I was in no way inferior to anyone. She loved me with all her heart, and we could overcome this obstacle. At that point, we really had no choice. I became a stay-at-home dad. It's been almost a year now. It's actually even been good, except for the diapers. I take my sons to the park almost every day. I talk to all the other moms and nannies. Let me tell you, these women say all kinds of nasty things. They didn't seem to care that there was a guy in their midst. Listening to some of them talk was worse than the locker room talk I heard in the gym. I get propositions almost every day. I don't know if they all did it seriously or not. I'm sure some of them did. I have to say something here. Not all the women in the park were propositioning themselves. Only half a dozen out of 30 were in this gesture. I don't want anyone to assume that all women are like that. I talk to other moms too. I learn a lot about kids and cleaning and what women don't get from their husbands. This has helped me a lot with Cara. I have been getting recipes from some of them lately. They would bring me a sample, and if I liked it, I would try to cook it. Over the course of a year, I became a pretty good cook. Cara came home and wanted to talk to me. She said they had hired some new managers and transferred some people from other offices. You look a little worried, honey. What's the matter? What's bothering you? I asked. There's good news. They've hired Dan, Emma's husband, for an office position. I'm not quite sure what his duties are yet, or exactly who he works for, she said. Honey, that's good news. Dan is a good man, and I'm glad he was able to get a decent position. I mentioned at the beginning of the story that Emma was a silent partner, but worked in the top floor offices. We didn't know that at the time. We found out much later. John, I know you don't like Ray. I interrupted Cara. You said Ray was transferred to West Virginia when you went full-time. Yes, but he's being transferred back. He'll be here next month. I just felt I had to tell you, that's all. That's not all, is it, Cara? I read it on her face. No, he's coming back as my boss. I asked to be transferred to another department, but they turned me down. Apparently, I'm too valuable to transfer. I talked to my boss, William, and he's being transferred to Arizona because he's having trouble breathing. So I'm the only one who knows our department besides Ray. Why didn't they just promote you? I asked the same question. It seems Ray knew about William's departure and asked for the job. He's already working at that level and has seniority above me, so he got the position. Do you want me to go and beat the crap out of him before he tries anything with you? John, does that make sense to you? He might not try to do anything. He's just so pushy I don't know what to think. I'll keep working on the translation. I didn't want to worry you about Ray, but I didn't want you to hear it from someone else either. You did the right thing to tell me, dear. Thank you for being such a good wife. Chapter 2. For the rest of the month, all was well. The next month, Ray came back and Cara always came home later and often upset. She hardly ever played with our boys. Sometimes she didn't eat dinner. I had to find out what the problem was. The next time she came home upset, I told her we needed to talk. What's the matter, Cara? Is Ray hitting on you? I asked. Not really, John. He just makes jokes and tries to touch my arm or hand when we're alone with him. He talks about what he used to think of me, and things like that. Isn't there someone you can tell? Someone you can talk to? And tell them that, John. Sir, I dated Ray before I was married, and now he's talking to me. John, I can't prove anything. I even put a tape recorder in the drawer, but he never says anything to me when we are in my office. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just paranoid. Honey, if he ever tries anything with you, will you tell me, or will you keep it a secret? I honestly don't know, John. I guess it depends on what he tries. For example, if he tried to kiss me and I told him no, and he backed off, I probably wouldn't tell you. You'd go and kill him and I'd be without you. I love you, John, and I would never do anything to hurt you. All I ask, Cara, is that if you have any problems with Ray or any other guy, let me know. After our conversation, things got better. Cara still had to stay late at work a couple times a week, but she looked happy when she got home. I cooked simple dinners because of the kids, but at least once a week we went out for a real meal. I felt a little awkward when we went out with other people. Still, the image of a father sitting at home was ever present. It didn't bother Cara or me, except when others brought it up, especially if they joked about it. I was still a man, and it was hard to explain that I still cared for my family, but in a different way. I had a nasty temper as well as jealousy, so my friends knew where to draw the line in talking to us. The husbands of some of Cara's friends didn't see it that way, and a couple times I met them outside for a few minutes to deal with them. I never told Cara about it, but she wondered why some of her friends didn't see us as much. I remember one day we were out with a snobby couple. It was some old friend of Cara's. I only met them at the wedding. Mary seemed quite normal, but her husband Robert, as he preferred to call himself, was an arrogant jerk. At our table, he made snide remarks about how the man should be the head of the family. When I got tired of his crap, I smiled at him and asked him to show me his new Porsche. Of course, he immediately jumped up to brag about it. We told the girls we'd be right back. We went to the parking lot and walked over to his car. I pushed him facing the car, grabbed his hand, and put it behind his back. I punched him twice in the kidneys and told him off. You arrogant bastard, I'm sick of your shit. When we get back there, if you make one more remark about me sitting at home, I'm going to throw your damn head out the window of your damn precious car. Do we understand each other? Yes, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, please don't hurt me. Let's go back in the house, you sweet ass, and you better act normal, I said. We went back to the house and I told Cara that it was a beautiful car and that she deserved one just like it. She replied that I was a very nice man and that she might have one someday, but for now she was happy with her car. She drove a decent car, a Mercury, but it was a few years old. I traded my truck for a van because of the kids. We needed more room than we had in my truck. During this whole conversation, Robert didn't say a word. I saw his wife look at him several times, probably wondering why he was so quiet. One day, Cara came home from work and said she wanted to see a play. She asked Mary if she and Robert wanted to go along, but Mary refused. After some persuasion, Mary told Cara that Robert didn't like me and didn't want to go out with us. I think Mary told Cara about the time I hit Robert in the parking lot. I wondered how he told the story, since that sweet-tempered guy didn't even fight back. Cara was angry with me. She told me that maybe she should go to the play with Mary and Robert and leave the caveman at home, meaning me. Screw you and them if that's what you want. I don't want to watch the goddamn play anyway. Hey, I have an idea. Ask your boss Ray to go with you. I'm sure Robert will approve of it, since they both want to get in your pants. I have a tendency to observe people, and as we ate dinner, I remember Robert looking at Cara meaningfully. She may have dated him before we met. We never talked about our past acquaintances, and that was a good thing. I entertained almost every woman who passed by. Now Cara was mad at me too. Maybe I will, she replied as she entered the room with the kids. None of us apologized, and she was getting ready to go to the play on Saturday. I wanted to ask her who was going, but I didn't want to start anything. It had only been 2 days since our fight, and we were barely speaking anymore. I called out to the boys, Come on, guys, let's go to McDonald's for dinner. I didn't even say goodbye to Cara. What about Mom, Dad? Isn't she coming with us? No, she has a date with friends. Maybe you'll see her tomorrow after you get up. I'm sure she'll be out late tonight. Cara looked at me. I did. I probably asked for it myself. You bastard. You have no reason to talk to me like that. You're the one who didn't want to go to the play. As for coming home late, maybe I won't come home at all. Cara called our sons over to her. Jimmy, Jerry, Mom is going to a play tonight with some friends. It's not a children's play, so Daddy is watching you. I'll see you tomorrow and we'll go to the park, okay? Can Daddy come to the park with us, Mommy? Jimmy asked. It's up to Daddy if he wants to go. We'll see you in the morning. Just remember that Mommy loves you. Now run with Daddy and have fun at McDonald's. She kissed them both and went to get ready. I was really feeling lousy. We didn't fight often, but when we did, it was always like this. My damn temper and jealousy, and she wouldn't budge an inch. There wasn't much I could do about it now, but I hoped it was just a fight and that Cara would get over it. The kids were having fun playing at McDonald's. I bought them each a kid's meal, and they liked the toy inside better than the meal. They played in the playroom, and I did some people watching. A few pretty women came in with their kids. I watched some of them, and I felt like they were watching me. Probably thought I was a divorced dad taking his kids out to eat. Hell, who knows, maybe I was. God, what was I thinking? My brain was working overtime. I didn't like my own thoughts. I know for a fact that if she ever cheats on me, I'm going to kill the bastard and divorce her. After the kids played for about an hour, we went to the airport to watch airplanes take off and land. The boys loved it. Look, Daddy, here comes a big one. See it coming? See it? See it, Daddy? They would ask me that every time an airplane appeared, which was often if you were at the airport. By the time we got home, it was starting to get dark. I bathed them and then put them to bed. They looked like two little angels. They were really very good boys. They could talk better than I could as a child. God, I loved them and really enjoyed being around them. Since Ray came back to town, the only thing I missed was Cara. Meeting after meeting, time away from our family, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I lay on the couch and watched whatever the TV was showing. It seemed to be a children's cartoon channel. I just wanted noise. Around midnight, I heard a car pull into the garage. I heard Cara get out of the car and come in to see me. I pretended to be asleep so she wouldn't bother me. I didn't feel like dealing with this right now. I watched her go check on the boys and then went and took off her dress. She must have decided to take a shower. She put the clothes in the clothes hamper in the bathroom, took a shower, and went to bed. I waited about an hour before getting up. I had to pee, but I wanted to make sure she was asleep. After peeing, I walked over to the clothes hamper. I had never mistrusted her in my life, but now I checked her clothes. I couldn't help it. I needed to see if there was anything out of place. She just seemed to be sweating. Hopefully nothing was wrong. I went back and fell asleep on the couch. I got up first thing in the morning and saw the program from the play on the table. It looked like she had gone to the play, but with whom? I wasn't going to ask her, let her tell me. The boys were already awake and wanted pancakes for breakfast. While I was making the pancakes, the boys went and jumped into bed with their mom. I heard them telling her about the prize they got at the baby food drive and what they were playing. Then I heard her ask them what Daddy was doing while they were playing. He was just watching us, Mommy. Did he sit with anyone? No, Mommy. He was sitting in the children's room watching us play. What the hell was that? She walks away and doesn't trust me, damn her. Maybe I'll give her an excuse. She could take the boys to the playground herself. And the boys came into the kitchen and were eating their pancakes. Cara came in and tried to talk to me politely, but I didn't reciprocate. She ate 2 pancakes, sat down, and started talking to the boys. Before she could ask me if I was going to the park, I told her I had plans for today. She would have to spend time with the kids without my presence. Where are you going? She asked. Plans? I have plans. I'm going to meet some friends. I need to get away by myself, I replied. I could tell she was angry. She had done the exact same thing to me the night before by pissing on her. I wasn't her damn slut. I went and put on a nice shirt and pants. I told the boys to enjoy the park with their mother and walked out of the house. I didn't have anywhere to go. I just wanted to get even. How stupid can you be? Our marriage had become a walking time bomb that neither of us could stop. We were both too hard-headed to put an end to the stupidity. I sat in the airport for about an hour. When I decided they were going to leave for the park, I headed home. I hadn't been there 5 minutes when the phone rang. It was Mary. She wanted to apologize for not going to the play. You didn't go to the play, Mary? I asked. No, that's why I want to apologize to Cara. I acted stupidly and unreasonably. Please ask her to call me when she gets home, okay, John? Of course I will. Thanks for calling, I replied. Now I was getting angry. If she didn't go with Mary and goddamn Robert, who did she go with? Probably with goddamn Ray. Shit, I was pissed. I couldn't even think straight. The bars were open, so I decided to go and tie one up. It was something I hadn't done in years. I headed to the local diner where my old friend Julie worked. She actually owned the place. She was about 15 years older than me, but she was a friend I could talk to. Hey, John, it's funny to see you here. I haven't seen you in months without the little lady attached to your arm. What can I get you? Give me 3 double whiskeys to start, and 3 beers, please, Julie. Going to quit, old boy? Need someone to talk to? Not now, Julie. Maybe later. Right now, I'm just going to kick myself. Do I have a good credit history in case I run out of money, Julie? Your credit is always top-notch around here, John. If you need anything, just ask. The place was nearly empty. A few early drinkers and a barfly. It was an older woman who would probably do anything for a drink. I drank and drank until I was hungover. The barfly, hell, I didn't even know her name, came over when I was on a roll and sat next to me in the booth. I waved for Julie to get the broad a drink. Baba thanked me, drank straight down, and asked if I wanted some company. Julie came over and told the broad to back off. She told her I was her friend and married. Julie told her to get the hell out and leave her customers alone. Slurring my words, I told Julie that she chased her client away. She didn't need to do that. Damn, John, that damn broad will be back tomorrow. You remember her, old Margaret. Hell, you probably entertained her 7 or 8 years ago, Julie laughed. No, I'd still be entertaining her now if you hadn't chased her away, I replied. John, you couldn't get up now if your life depended on it. I've called a hitchhiker for you. Try to stay awake until she gets here if you can. I was almost out of energy. I looked at the door and Cara walked in. Julie called her to come and get me. The two of them helped get me into the car. My sons were laughing at me from the back seat. I heard Cara thank Julie for calling her. Cara told her that we would come get the car in the morning. I passed out, and Julie let me sleep in the car with the garage door down. When I woke up, it was completely dark outside. My God, it was 3:30 in the morning. Staggering, I walked into the house and headed for the bathroom. I peed and was close to throwing up. Luckily, there was no trouble. I went back in, laid down on the couch, and fell asleep. The next moment, Cara woke me up and told me that we needed to talk, that the situation was getting out of hand. She has a full day of meetings today and tomorrow, but we need to talk at the earliest opportunity. She said she talked to our neighbor who is taking me to get the van. He'll be there at 10. She said she was running late and had to leave. Kissing me lightly on the cheek, she said she loved me and walked out the door. I got up, made some coffee, and waited for the boys to wake up. I barely remembered what had happened the night before, but I remembered Mary's phone call. She and Robert hadn't gone to the play. I had a hell of a headache, so I took a couple ibuprofen pills, hoping to dull the pain. I gave the boys porridge and made them get dressed. I dressed myself and waited for my neighbor. We all got into his van and he drove us to get our van. I told him thank you and apologized for the inconvenience. That's okay, John. I've had more than a few hookups when I was younger, he replied. I buckled the boys in and we hit the road. I found myself driving to Cara's office. I took the boys with me into her office. It was their first time seeing the inside of their mom's office. I approached her secretary and was told that Cara was not working today. I asked for Ray and was told he wasn't in the office either. Where the hell are they? I'm her husband. I'm sorry, Mr. Poole. They're at a company meeting at the Holiday Inn, she said. I was about to leave when Dan came up to me. John, how are you? He asked. Not the best, Dan. I came to see my wife and found she wasn't here. She's at the Holiday Inn with that damn freak, Ray. He was stunned by my statement and asked me to come into his office. The boys sat in the hallway while I talked to Dan. What does all this mean, John? Is Ray making inappropriate advances toward Cara? I find that hard to believe. This is the first I'm hearing about it, he said. I'm not sure what's going on, but that's why I came here to find out. John, they're in a meeting at the Holiday Inn. I know that for a fact. They'll be there again tomorrow. Don't do anything you'll regret until I get back to you. Thanks, Dan. You've always been a friend to me. He walked out and talked to the guys for a few minutes. He really was a decent guy. He and Emma were a good match. It was a good thing he had found a job with this company. The guys and I left and I drove past the Holiday Inn. I saw Cara and Ray's cars parked side by side in the parking lot. As I headed home, I felt uneasy. As we entered the room, the answering machine flashed. It was a message from Cara. John, I'm sorry, honey, but this meeting is going to last longer than we planned. Proceed to dinner without me. I'll talk to you when I get home. Give the boys a kiss for me. Love you. What was I left to think? She never told me this meeting was going to be held at the motel. I wasn't going to be here when she got home. I took the boys and headed to my mom's house. I left Cara a note and told her that I would probably see her tomorrow. Today we were staying at my mom's house. I just signed it John. No love, John. I didn't know how I felt at that moment. Nothing seemed right. Tomorrow I was going to go to the Holiday Inn on my own and get this shit over with. Chapter 3. Around 9 p.m., my mom's phone rang. I knew it was Cara. She must have just gotten home. I told my mom to answer it and tell Cara that the boys had already gone to bed and I wasn't in the mood to talk. I would see her tomorrow. I could hear my mom saying it was useless, that I was too pushy. My mom liked Cara, unlike how Cara's parents treated me. At the end, my mom said she would work it out and that I would see her tomorrow. Mom turned to me. John, there is something wrong here. You and Cara need to talk and work things out. She was crying when we hung up the phone. I don't care what you think. Cara loves you and you need to get your head in order. Arguing with my mom was useless. She's probably where I got that bullheaded gene from. I moved to the couch and tried to sleep. I was already used to sleeping on the couch. I got up the next morning trying to figure out what I should do. So much circumstantial shit, but it adds up. I was supposed to meet Cara today. I decided to go to the Holiday Inn and find out for myself. I asked my mom to watch the boys so I could talk to Cara. Mom was glad that I was at least giving Cara a chance to explain everything. I headed to the Holiday Inn. First, I looked for their cars. I saw their cars in the side parking lot. I entered through the side entrance and saw a sign that said there was a meeting being held. The doors were open so I could hear what was going on. There were about 10 people sitting around an oval table. I peeked inside, but no one noticed me. Cara was sitting next to Ray, the bastard. I listened to the conversation outside the door as the person I was talking to said that they would break for an hour to have lunch and then meet up to finish work. They should finish early today. I quickly went out to the van and waited for everyone to leave. They stayed there for lunch, but I saw Cara and Ray come out of the side door. I rolled down the window to hear what they were talking about. What do you want, Ray? I don't want to be here with you. Some might take it the wrong way, and I have enough problems at home, Cara said. Does your little house daddy miss you? Does he think you have a lover? Asked Ray. Stop it, Ray. What you and I had, or rather never had, was 6 years ago, before I met John. When are you going to get it into your head that I want nothing to do with you? Why are you making this so difficult for us? Don't you realize that I don't need you? I need my husband, John. Come on, Cara. What does he have that I don't? Besides, he's a stay-at-home daddy and you're the breadwinner. When are you going to want a real man like me and ditch his candy ass? John is twice, no, 10 times, better than you could ever hope to be. You're lucky I don't tell him how much you've been bugging me. He'd kick your ass next week. Now leave me alone. You think I'm afraid of homeboy. Come here. He raised his hand to grab her, but she pulled back to slap him. He reached up and grabbed her shoulder. Come on, Cara. Is that all you have in you to fight? I jumped out of the van and was on his ass in 3 seconds. I saw his mouth open and Cara said, John, what are you doing here? Doing what I should have done months ago, I replied. I punched him. He still couldn't take a single swing. He kept using his hands, trying to defend himself. I heard Cara behind me crying and screaming, Stop, John! Please stop! 2 patrol cars pulled up, and the officers told me to get on the ground. Apparently, I didn't lie down fast enough, as they yelled at me again. Get on the ground! Arms out to your sides, legs spread! Beat that. One of the officers put his knee on the middle of my back, took my hands, and snapped my handcuffs behind my back. Then 2 officers put me on my feet. I told them, Officer, my hands hurt. I can barely feel them. They took me to the patrol car, at which time an ambulance pulled up, and the paramedics went over to Ray and began treating him. The officer told one of the paramedics to come over and look at my hands. He told him they were swollen and covered in blood. I didn't know if it was my blood or Ray's. The paramedic turned out to be a black guy named Jim. He was decent looking. He asked the officer to uncuff me, but the officer refused, saying he couldn't trust me without handcuffs. Yeah, kid, I'm Jim. What's your name? My name is John. My hands hurt like hell, Jim. Nothing broken? If you think your arms look bad, you should see how you finished that guy over there. John, you did a great job on him. You're lucky all your fingers aren't broken. What the hell happened? What did he do to deserve a beating like that? You don't look like a bad man. He jumped my wife, and when he grabbed her, I snapped. I can't let that bastard mess around with my wife, even if he is her boss. John, you're in deep shit. He told the officer he wants to charge you with assault with intent to commit murder. I didn't intend to kill him, but I may have overreacted a little. What about my hands, Jim? You hit a couple blood vessels. They're pretty swollen, but nothing broken. You must have hit him on a hard part of the skull, or a belt buckle or something. I put a bandage on them, but when they take you to your cell, I'll tell them to ice them or let me wet them to bring down the swelling. Thanks, Jim. You're fine in my opinion. I'm glad of that after what you did to that guy. Good luck to you, John. And for that matter, if he did what you said, he deserved it. I was put in a patrol car and taken to my cell. I looked back. Ray was being laid in the ambulance, and Cara was sitting in the patrol car. They were taking her statement. Cara was telling her story. I'm sitting here scared to death. I have to go in front of the board of directors and tell them what happened yesterday. They want to know why my husband beat up my boss, Ray. Let me go back to the beginning, before I even met John. I'll try not to repeat everything you already know. As you already know, I met John at a New Year's Eve party. Before that, I had been dating Ray for a few months. Before that, I was a popular girl. My family had money, not the richest, but we were well off. I went to the best schools, wore the latest clothes. I socialized with rich kids, or as we say, kids who come from money. Not all of them were bad kids. Most of them were pretty normal. We just got what we wanted. In college, I lost my virginity at one of the parties. I wasn't a slut. The number of men I'd been with could be counted on the fingers of one hand. When I started working at Bookbindings Inc., I was quite popular. I did marketing and got along with just about everyone. That's where I met Ray. We were on equal footing, but he had started working there about a year before I got there. We started dating and he was like the guys I knew. He was rich and arrogant. He thought only of himself. After Christmas, I made the mistake of sleeping with him once. It sucked. I only went to the New Year's Eve party with him because the party was planned long before our so-called fun, and we worked together. I wasn't going to sleep with him again. It's ridiculous to call it sleeping. It would have been nicer if I had slept. At the party, I met John. He was a bad boy that I wasn't supposed to hang out with. When we left the party and went dancing among his friends, it reminded me of the movie Titanic, where Rose went with Jack and had the time of her life. That's what happened to me and to John. I didn't want it to end. I knew there was more to life, and I felt that with John. When he drove me home, I knew there would be. He was fantastic. He was the lover of my dreams, the man I had been thinking about for all the years. I knew I would marry him if he said yes. My parents and brothers were against me marrying John. I told them I loved him and that they could either be a part of our lives or not. The choice was theirs. They bumped and hissed, but eventually agreed to the marriage. John and I, as you know, have 2 sons. They are the loves of our lives. After each of them were born, I took vacations to be with them. I hated even working part-time being away from them. They were our little boys and depended on John so much. John lost his job. We didn't know what to do. I told John that I could go back to work full-time and he could look after the boys. At first, he thought it was a stupid idea. After all, he was supposed to be the breadwinner. Quality work was scarce in our neighborhood. Eventually, I went back to work and John stayed home with the boys. In a way, I became jealous of John. I loved him with all my heart, but he was home and I was supposed to be with my boys. I was also worried about John and the other moms at the park. He doesn't know that I know that women think he is handsome. I worry every day that he will leave me for one of these women. I even asked the boys about what Daddy used to do when he took them out. I was afraid of losing him. Then I started working longer hours and saw him less and less. I knew it was hurting our marriage, but what could I do? We had to work to survive. I know I'm not a great American. It's hard for a working woman to keep everything together. Work, family, proper love for her husband, help around the house, all the responsibilities. I was dumping more and more on John and doing less and less for him. I was worried. And then Ray moved here and was going to be my boss. I don't like him, and John didn't know that I had done it with Ray once before I met him. We never discussed our sex life before marriage. We both decided it was unacceptable. Now the job was tearing me away from the man I loved and putting me next to a man I despised. I was torn between what to do. Ray kept hitting on me, and I was afraid to tell John about it. I knew what he would do, but he ended up doing it anyway. John has a bad temper and jealousy. He cares a lot about what is his. I love that about him, and at the same time I hate it. I feel safe when he's around. It pissed me off that people made fun of John. I didn't know if I should talk about it or not. If I spoke up in front of John, I knew it would make him angry. He knew how to fight on his own, but at the same time he was my man, and I wanted to stand up for him. I told many of my girlfriends that if they had a problem with John, we didn't need to be friends. I stood up for him when he couldn't speak up for himself. I told Mary and Robert to go to hell. John meant more to me than they did. Mary called to apologize, and I realized I had been wrong in my attitude toward John. I think my girlfriends' husbands were actually jealous of John. He could live his life and be with his family. His masculinity was safe while these husbands were constantly away and worried about money. John got a call from Mary and found out that they didn't go to the play with me. Now John was suspicious of Ray again. He used to piss me off so much, always accusing me of having affairs even though I never did anything wrong. We all say stupid things in the heat of an argument. That's what I did when I told him I might be having an affair. I should have known he would snap. We're both so bullheaded. We needed to communicate more and talk about our problems. I was afraid to tell him that our meeting would be at the Holiday Inn. I knew he would think it was wrong, and he did. There were 20 people at the meeting the first day, and it ran late. I called him, and he dumped me. I didn't know what to do. I called his mother, a wonderful person, but she said she knew he wouldn't talk to me. I went to bed devastated. I cried all night. The next day was our last meeting. I thought that after the meeting, John and I could go somewhere and be alone together. I love him so much. During lunch, Ray asked me to walk me outside. I told him off and went to slap him when he tried to touch me. The rest is history. John beat the crap out of him. I was so afraid John would destroy Ray and I would lose my John forever. Now he's in a jail cell, and I'm sitting here getting ready to tell my story to the board of directors. I'm scared, and I don't have my John to protect me. Chapter 4. Here I am sitting in a jail cell. I'm being charged with assault with intent to maim or injure. Funny, but that's exactly what I was going to do. Looks like I'm guilty. They didn't charge me with murder because I didn't have any weapons. I didn't even have my car keys. I left them in the van when I jumped out. I wet my hand in a bucket full of ice when I was in the cell. Damn, they hurt like hell. They are still swollen and have a few cuts and abrasions on them. According to Jim, they should be better in a couple days. My bail has been set at $100,000. I can post bail and get out with $10,000. I tried to call Cara, but kept dialing the answering machine. Apparently, I'd left her enough trouble. An officer came to my cell. He said my bail was paid and I needed to sign some papers, after which I could be released. I've only been here for a night. Where did Cara get the money? I walked up to the front desk and there stood my father-in-law. A man I probably hadn't spoken 50 words to in 5 years. Had he loaned us the money to bail me out? John, we need to talk. Cara called me and told me about your situation. I'm really sorry about it. You see, Cara opened our eyes last Saturday. Mr. Carson, what happened last Saturday? Cara went to the play last Saturday. Yes, she went with my wife and me. She said there was a misunderstanding between you two. We told her we didn't think you were right for her, and she put us on the spot. She told us how she felt about you and how much she loved you. She told us how much Jimmy and Jerry love you and that most husbands are jealous of you. She called you her knight in shining armor, and yesterday you proved it. You protected my daughter, your wife. I am very sorry for the way I have treated you over the years, and I apologize to you. I'm also a pretty tough person, and it's hard for me to do this. I apologize to you, and I hope we can be better friends. I hope my 2 sons can live up to your standards. Thank you, Mr. Carson, for bailing me out. I would like to become friends with you and Mrs. Carson. Your daughter loves you very much, and it's hard for her when she has to choose who to be with. Right now, I need to find out how long I can be sent away for. I may need you to look after my family. John, we're going to fight this. I know Cara, and she doesn't lie. She may not always tell the whole story, but she won't lie about it. Right now, we need to get you home with your boys. Cara is in her office right now and will try to explain what happened. Mr. Carson dropped me off at my house. Cara left me a note in case I was out on bail. Honey, I'm at the office trying to see if I have a job. Please don't leave if you get home before I do. I miss you so much. I took the boys to your mom's. John, you have to believe me. I love you with my whole being. I hope you'll be there for me when I get home. Love you, Cara. I'm pretty sure Cara wasn't cheating on me with Ray, but now we had other problems. I walked over to the fridge to grab a beer when I heard Cara's car parked in the garage. I quickly grabbed another beer and opened them. As soon as Cara walked in, I held one out to her. Reconciliation sacrifice for all the shit I've pulled. I love you, and I know we can get through this if you stay with me. Cara, I'm a fool for not believing you to the end. Please forgive me if you can. Tears came to my eyes because I really meant what I said. Cara started crying and reached up and hugged me. I was still holding my beer in both hands. Honey, could you take one of these before I spill it? She smiled at me through her tears. John, I love you so much. I've never cheated on you. I never even thought about it. Please believe me. I just didn't tell you everything because, well, now you know why. Now I'm going to tell you. Maybe we can nip this in the bud before it goes too far. I wanted to tell you what was going on, but then you started blaming me, and we're both a bit hard-headed. We need to talk more often, she said. I agree. No more secrets or untold stories. When your father bailed me out, I was surprised to see him. He apologized to me and said you told them off and stood up for me. He said you went to the play with him and Mom. All this time you never told me. Like I said, you kept accusing me of wanting Ray and accusing me of dating him. I got angry and just said, to hell with it, you can believe whatever you want. I never cheated on you, and I was always on your side. It's just that you didn't see it. You assumed the worst. What a damn fool I was. You're right. We need to talk more. Will you tell me what happened at the plant today? I wasn't really brought up to speed. You won't believe this, but I was brought before the board to give our version of events and what led up to them, and Emma was on the board. I almost crapped my pants when I saw her. No wonder Dan got the position so easily. If I was on the board, I would have hired you, she said. I talked to Dan the other day, and he told me not to do anything stupid until he contacted me. I should have obeyed, but when that creep went after you, I lost my mind. I'm so sorry, honey. John, you never need to apologize for protecting me. It's one of the things I love you for. You're my hero, she smiled. Your hero is going to jail soon if I don't find a way out of this mess, I replied. So what happened at this meeting? Emma started by telling me that she cared for you and thought you must have been furious to do what you did. I told her about how Ray tried to hit on me, and I rejected his advances, but he wouldn't stop. She said I should have come to the council and reported Ray. I said I had no proof that it was his word against mine. One of the other board members said I should have reported the incident to be put on my personnel file. After a few complaints, they were supposed to take disciplinary action. I went and told them everything that happened, and when Ray grabbed my arm, you jumped out of the van and protected me. Did they say anything else? They talked to Ray at the hospital, and his story was very different. They said you roughed Ray up pretty badly and he filed an assault report against you. He'll be in the hospital for another day or two. They asked me if I wanted to file a sexual harassment claim against Ray. I asked what would be the point, since I had no proof anyway. Emma pulled me aside and said, Cara, trust me, file a report. I did as Emma advised and applied. The council told me to take the rest of the week off and come back on Monday when they would have a chance to look at all the evidence and make a decision. I asked if I still had a vacancy, and a member of the council told me they would let me know on Monday. Geez, honey, I screwed up big time this time, I said. We had a few days to be with the boys. There was nothing we could do for now, so we told the boys we would take them to the zoo as a family. After the zoo, we went to their diner, McDonald's, and then they wanted to watch airplanes for a while. Let me tell you, it was so much better when we did it as a family. Even the fries tasted better. We put the boys to bed, and Cara asked me if we were going to do something now. She didn't have to ask twice. The next morning, we got a call from Cara's dad's lawyer. He told us not to worry and that Cara's father would pay all the legal fees. I didn't like the idea of accepting money from him, but Cara said she knew he had to do it to apologize to us. She was right, and besides, we didn't have the money for a good lawyer. Monday morning, Cara got dressed to go before the board of directors. I dressed the boys and then put on pants and a sports jacket. Cara looked at me and asked, "Where are you going?" "We're taking the boys to Mom's and I'm going with you. I made this mess and I'll be with you all the way. You won't get through this alone." She cried and kissed me. After dropping the boys off, we went to the office and went up to the reception area. The receptionist came out and asked Cara to come into the room. Cara asked me to wait for her. She walked into the conference room and was asked to sit down. "How are you doing, Cara?" Emma asked. "No worse than you'd expect, but I have John backing me up," Cara replied. "How's John? How's he coping with the pressure?" "Well, he's waiting for me in the waiting room. He didn't want me to deal with this alone." "Is John in the waiting room?" "Ask him to come in," Emma replied. The receptionist asked me to come in. I sat down next to Cara and took her hands. How are you doing, John? How are your hands? Emma asked. They're getting back to normal. They'll be fine in a couple days, I replied. John, Cara, we think we have some good news for you. We had a visit from Ray a while back. For what it's worth, John, you did a great job on him. Anyway, we broached the subject of the charges you filed last week. Of course, Ray said it wasn't true. We asked him then what provoked John to attack him. Of course, he couldn't answer that question. Another council member continued. Ray said that while the charges cannot be proven, which we agree with, he is willing to drop the charges against John if you, Cara, drop the harassment charges against him and do not take disciplinary action against him. So, Cara, this is at your disposal. Are you willing to drop the harassment charges against Ray if he drops the assault charges against John? Cara cried, squeezing my hands. I could see that Emma's eyes were starting to water as well. God, yes, thank you so much. I don't know what to say, Cara cried. I had something to say. Emma and everyone else, I'd like to thank you too for your actions here, and I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but should my wife still work under Ray? I'm afraid I'm going to have a hard time accepting that. Another board member said, We had to think about it too. We could suggest it, but it's up to Cara to make the decision. Cara, would you be willing to take over the department? I don't understand. You said there would be no disciplinary action. Where will Ray go if I get promoted? Cara asked. He'll go back to West Virginia. He complained after he signed the lawsuit, but we told him it wasn't a disciplinary action. It was just a good business move. He will be on sick leave for about a month, and then he will be reassigned. We're not going to send him back in the condition he's in. So, Cara, should we consider this an acceptance of a promotion? Cara looked at me. So, honey, should I accept the position? She smiled at me. Sure, just don't work so late. The guys and I will cook dinner for you. I smiled back. Emma spoke up. Okay, I think we did a pretty good job. Oh, Cara, I hope you'll be considerate of my situation. Very, Emma, very, and thank you so much for everything, Cara replied. When we left the conference room, Dan was standing there smiling. I didn't shake his hand but gave him a hug. He was a true friend. When we got in the car, I told Cara to call Mom and Dad and invite them over for dinner. We were paying. We had some great news to share with them. I decided it would be a good start in accepting each other. It's been 2 years since all of this happened. Our lives have really gotten better. Whenever one of us goes too far, we use the word hard-headed. It's to let the other know that we need to talk things out. I still look out for women, but I let Cara know what I've seen. I always reply, but my place is better. Cara tells me she can live with it, watching but not touching. The kids are in school now, so the days are much calmer. I told Cara I was going to look for a job. That same day, I got a call from my father-in-law. John, Cara called and said you're looking for a job. Is that true? Yes, Dad, it is. He told me as we ate dinner to start calling him Dad, so I do. The boys are in school and I'd like to get some work. I have a job opening in a warehouse. It only pays $30,000 a year, but it's honest work, and you'll be able to rest when my grandkids are home. We can even find a way to give you a summer vacation. My grandchildren come first. He realized that family came first. I accepted the offer and called Cara at work. We met for lunch and invited Dan and Emma to come along. We asked them to be godparents to Jimmy and Jerry. The most important thing Cara and I found out is that we need to communicate more with each other. We don't need to assume anything. We need to ask each other. Our lovemaking is still great. We have the friends that Cara had and the friends that I had. All of our friends realize that they have to accept both of us or neither of us. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.